Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very important announcement to make about the future of this channel. So if you're interested, keep listening. If not, you can skip further stories around here. So most of you don't know about how much time and effort I put in all of my videos. For the last couple of months, I've been working for YouTube like this was my full-time job, with the exception that I wasn't getting paid, because YouTube hasn't enabled the ads for my channel yet, so I can't make anything out of my videos, except the occasional sales that I have on my Etsy shop, which I am really grateful and thank you so much, it really means the world to me. So as you might understand, I don't know for how long I can keep doing this. Right now, even though I'm a speech therapist and also an artist, I can't make a living out of it because the economy in my country is that bad. So that was the main reason why I created this channel, because I wanted this to become my full-time job like so many other narrators. That's also why I started the animation series, because I thought that it would add a unique value to my videos and it will grow my channel even faster. So that brings us to the important announcement, which is that I created a Patreon page. And I'm sure that you're hearing this all the time. Please support my channel on Patreon, blah blah blah. Well, I'm here to tell you that this is different and this is not just charity, because I took my time and I designed every tier carefully for you guys because I want the best for you. And as time passes and more people are coming to my Patreon, I will be adding more free content, more free things, and I will be hosting giveaways and stuff like that. So let me put on my glasses and take a look at my Patreon page. So how Patreon works is that you can pledge monthly a small amount of money from $1 to $50 and you will get exclusive videos and photo content. Behind the scenes videos, animated scary stories, speedrunning videos, scary stories, narrations, and more. You can also win exclusive signed prints and mini prints every month. So for the $5 reward, which is the first reward, you will be getting 2 exclusive monthly videos, you will be getting polls where you can vote of the videos you want me to create here on Patreon, and your name in the end of every video. For the $10 reward, you will be getting 4 exclusive monthly videos, polls where you can vote for the videos you want me to create here on Patreon, and polls where you can vote for the videos you want me to create on my YouTube channel. Behind the scenes videos and photos, you will have the opportunity to watch me create, and your name in the end of every video. With the $15 reward, you will be getting 4 exclusive monthly videos, you will be getting polls again, where you can vote for the videos you want me to create here on Patreon and also on my YouTube channel, behind the scenes videos and photos, and mini exclusive signed print that you will not be able to find anywhere else, and your name in the end of every video. So with the $30 reward, you will be getting all the previous rewards plus exclusive signed print mailed to you. This print will be signed and titled and you will not be able to find it anywhere else. 4 exclusive monthly videos, polls where you can vote for the videos you want me to create on Patreon and also on my YouTube channel, behind the scenes videos and photos, and your name in the end of every video. And for the special $50 reward, you will be getting a portrait sketched by me. Your portrait sketched by me in my style in size A5, 4 exclusive monthly videos, polls where you can vote for the videos you want me to create here on Patreon and on YouTube, and behind the scenes videos and photos, and also your name on every video. So if you really want to support this channel and also make my dream of becoming a full-time YouTuber, support my Patreon. I will leave a link below in case you want to check it out, but for now guys, grab your flashlights and follow me into the darkness. I was born and raised in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Unless you live nearby, you've probably never heard of it. Even people in the large Wisconsin cities, Madison and Milwaukee, don't know we exist. Wisconsin in general is known for our cheese, our cows, and our love of beer, and of course, for our excess of mental institutions and serial killers. Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer hail from my home state. In case you've been living under a rock, they are 2 of the most infamous serial killers in America. I don't know if it's the cold climate or what, but we seem to breed quite a bit of crazy up here. Sheboygan is not immune from the crazy. We have this old abandoned asylum by the highway. It used to house the criminally insane, at least according to local folklore. This is where Milk White legend came from. Milk White was supposedly a patient at the asylum. He was born there, his mother being one of the inmates. No one knew what to do with him, so he just crawled around the asylum, eating scraps. He had no other kids to play with. He was an albino, and any form of light would horribly burn his skin, so he was never awake when there was daylight. Milk White grew up learning madness from the other inmates. Desperate for human companionship, something about that madness turned him from a human into a demon. The story is that one day he found a way to get in and out of the asylum. He got it into his head that he could go find friends from the city. He peered into the windows of every house to see if anyone was awake. If he found a child awake, he would steal them away. Of course, children are loud, so instead of taking them alive, he would use his huge teeth to crush their necks. He would prop up the corpses of the children in the asylum basement, pretending to have an entire room of friends. He would sing them nursery rhymes in the dead of night. The asylum was shut down a long time ago. Milk White had nowhere to go. So, they say, he still lives in the abandoned building and bringing back the bodies of any kid still awake after dark. This was all regarded as an urban legend, but I remember that story back from when I was a kid. There was an odd little rhyme that we used to sing at the playground. It went, "Hush now, sleep tight, or else beware of Milk White. He doesn't fuss, he doesn't fight. He'll kill you dead with just one bite." Parents would use this tale to scare their children into going to sleep. It worked well, or at least it did for me. I fully believed the myth up until middle school. I remember that's when a new kid moved to town. He was from New York City, so we all thought he had to be way cooler than any of us. His name was Jimmy. He had a New York accent and everything, and had a leather jacket. He wore it all year round, even in the middle of winter. He was never quiet about how much he hated in Sheboygan. My friend Hans and I made an uneasy friendship with him. Hans was 17, but dumb enough to be held back to middle school. He was huge compared to us. We'd been friends for a while. I actually grew up with his brother, Peter. Peter disappeared on a camping trip when we were 7. After that, I started becoming closer with Hans. We'd hang out, play video games, and just do nothing. He wasn't very smart, hence being held back for so long. But he was a good guy. I liked being his friend. I was a pretty typical 12-year-old, trying to appear cooler than I was. I wasn't particularly special, but I guess I was a good kid. Jimmy was the one with all the confidence. He would talk to girls and get himself out of trouble easily. He also thought he knew everything. It was Jimmy's idea to scope out the asylum. I think he was bored of the snow and wanted to do something exciting. That's when I told him about Milk White. "What a crock of shit," he responded. "That's a fucking baby story. You don't really believe that." I looked at Hans, who shook his head stupidly. Hans was pretty happy to have friends, so he would have done anything for Jimmy or me. I was scared, but I shook my head too. Jimmy decided we would go to the asylum at night. He joked about Milk White, calling him a pathetic excuse for a ghost story. Hans and I were horrified that he would mock the creature that haunted our childhoods, but we tried to act calm about it. We snuck at around midnight. Jimmy, like always, just wore his leather jacket. He led the way as we trudged around the snow towards the abandoned building. It must have been impressive once, but now it just looked decayed. While we were walking, Hans grabbed my arm and pointed to the ground. A set of footprints were in the snow. The prints were large, like that of a grown man, but there were toe marks, as if the person was barefoot. I shrugged at Hans. Come on. We go to the main entrance of the asylum. Jimmy tried to open the door, but it was shut firmly. He kicked at it, but to no use. Hans was shivering. Looks like we can't get in. Jimmy laughed at him. You fucking pussy. We haven't even tried yet. Jimmy has a terrible mouth on him. Hans and I were good boys. We never swore, but Jimmy was very different than us. He moved around to a boarded-up window. It was low enough that he could use his hands to pry under the boards. With a violent jerk, he pulled a plank away. We could see that there was no glass inside. Jimmy made a loud "aha" sound and fought the other board loose. He pulled himself up to the window and slipped inside. Hans and I looked at each other nervously. I took a deep breath of cold air and hoisted myself through the window. I landed on a pile of broken boards. Apparently, other people had tried to get in as well, because there were planks everywhere. Jimmy was rubbing his leg. I think I fucking cut myself. I stood up and dusted myself off. Hans flew through the window with a heavy thump. He shrieked and held up his hand. A nail was embedded into his palm. Jimmy went over him and yanked the thing out. Tears poured down Hans' cheeks. Jimmy rolled his eyes. You're a big fucking baby, aren't you? He turned his back on us and started towards the hall. We all had thought ahead to bring flashlights, but they weren't much help. The halls were pitch black. We walked along the wall, keeping a hand steady to balance. We heard a squeak from behind us, and I almost jumped out of my skin. Jimmy just laughed. Scared of mice now too? The entire time we explored the asylum, I barely breathed. It wasn't just the darkness, it was the unknown. We found empty wheelchairs and creepy-looking metal cots. Our flashlights scanned the blackness, but nothing moved. Once we had been exploring for an hour or so, I felt my heartbeat slow. Jimmy was obviously right. Milk White was just a baby story to scare kids. It was Hans who found the door to the basement. He pointed at it with his flashlight. Jimmy tried the handle, but it was stuck. He tried kicking down the door, but he just hurt his ankle. I stood silently. You, big guy, kick the door. I want to see what's down there. Hans started trembling and shook his head no. Jimmy pushed him. Come on, you big idiot. Do something useful for fuck's sake. Hans looked down, embarrassed. I stepped towards them. Maybe we should go. Or maybe you should. We all stopped because of what we heard. It was footsteps. It sounded like they were coming up the stairs from the basement door. I stared, open-mouthed at Jimmy, who was frozen in place. The footsteps were loud. They sounded like skin slapping on metal. Turn off your flashlights now, Jimmy hissed. We all shut our flashlights off and huddled against the wall. Hans was shaking really bad. The footsteps kept going until they were almost right next to us. Then there was the sound of the doorknob creaking. It was completely dark, so we could not see a thing. All we could do was listen as the door slid open. That's when we heard the voice. It was the deep voice of a man, but sang unreasonably high. It sang, whispered, "Hush now, sleep tight." Jimmy was rocking back and forth. I could feel the fear emanating from him. He had his jaw clenched, and his teeth made a horrible crunch. The voice kept singing, "Beware, beware of Milk White." I must have trembled, because my thumb knocked the on button of my flashlight. In a single second, it illuminated the hallway, and we could see the source of the voice. All of us gasped as one. It stood barely 2 feet away. It might have been a man once, but now had the posture of a scorpion. It was naked, standing with its feet spread apart like an insect. The nails on its feet and hands were so overgrown they curled back into its skin. The teeth jutted from his mouth. They hung down as if they were too heavy for it to lift its head properly. Its skin, It wasn't white, not like the rhyme said. It was stained red. He took a step towards us and whispered, "Kill you dead," with just one bite, and that's when Hans bashed my head in with his flashlight. I woke up on the floor of the asylum. Daylight had only just crept into the sky. My head was pounding. I struggled to stand, but I must have gotten frostbite in the night. My fingers and toes were completely numb. I looked around and saw Jimmy passed out near me. He had a giant bruise on his temple. I don't know how I did it, but I managed to stand up and drag Jimmy out of the window. I wasn't strong enough to sling him over my shoulder, so I had to drag him through the snow. He made soft pain sounds, but didn't wake up. I made it to the tavern by the highway. They weren't open, but I pounded the door until my knuckles bled, screaming for help. The owner finally came to see what the noise was and let us in. He was visibly shaken by our appearance. He called the police and our parents. Soon, I was wrapped up in blankets and slowly beginning to feel warm again. Jimmy eventually woke up in the hospital with minor memory loss. I told the police my story, and they searched the entire asylum. They didn't find anything. No evidence of any foul play, except the blood Jimmy had lost. No one knew where Hans was. His parents were devastated. Now, they had lost 2 sons. Jimmy had no memory of the night's events. At least, that's what he said. My parents made me see a psychologist who told me I created the whole thing in my mind. She said Hans must have gone something terrible to Jimmy, and I just blocked it out. After all, Hans was so much older and bigger than us, and then he left town. The psych implied it was sexual abuse. She said I made up the image of Milk White because I knew that from my childhood. It was easier than facing the truth. I went to bed before dark every night until I went away for college. I never went back to Sheboygan. They think it's because of what Hans did to me. But I know what I saw, and I know that Hans only hurt me to knock me out. He knew that Milk White can't get you if you're asleep. This is something that has been happening to me for 2 months now. I've tried telling people that it is happening, but no one will believe me. I'm gonna start from the beginning so you understand what I have been going through, and maybe someone can provide me with some help. I live in the basement of my parents' house. I'm only 23, and I just landed a full-time job, so it isn't like I'm doing well in life. I have plans on moving out soon. Anyways, every morning I wake up feeling like my throat is closed. It's like having a strep throat every day. At first, I thought I was just getting sick. The weird part about it was that after I would get out of the basement and start my day, the sickness would go away. When I realized that sleeping in the basement was causing me to feel this way, I started sleeping on the first floor, whether it be the couch or just the carpet, anything to not have to sleep in my bedroom in the basement. The feeling of sickness stopped once I had spent less time in my room. I planned on never sleeping down there again until something weird started to happen. My younger sister, she was 17, started to get sick, like really sick. Coughing up blood, no appetite, throwing up, stomach issues. My parents took her to the hospital, but no one could pinpoint what was wrong with her. After a few weeks of this, I was worried like any big brother would be, and my worry drove me to looking into the basement. Maybe mold or something had been causing my weird sickness, and somehow it's affecting her too. Maybe it's floating to her bedroom on the 2nd floor through the vents. I walked into the basement and opened the door to the furnished room. The room has a bunch of random items in it. Christmas decorations, suitcases, old furniture. The usual stuff you don't want people to see when they come to your house, so you stuff in it the room you never go into. I flipped the light switch to the on position, and obviously the light didn't turn on. I used my iPhone as a flashlight, and began to stumble over the items in the way of the furnish. Something moved. From behind one of the pipes, I saw a figure shift to the left, directly out of my line of sight. My heart began to race. I was gonna say something like, "Hello, who's there?" But I always hate how people in movies do that, and didn't want to be like them. So instead, I just slowly started to make my way towards the door. That's when I heard it say my name. I dropped my phone. Jack. I dropped my phone, said a few of my favorite curse words, and fell into the Halloween decorations. Luckily, my phone dropped on its face, so the flashlight began illuminating the room. A figure on the very edge of the light, wearing a black robe with a large hood covering the face and large sleeves, inched forward. "You want to sleep in your bed tonight, Jack." The way it said my name sent a shiver up my spine. It spoke slow and had a shrill voice. I could not speak. "I promise your sister will be better." It may have laughed. I could not tell. All I know, it is backed away, grabbed my phone and rushed up the stairs. I tried telling my parents. I brought them downstairs and in the furnace room, once again, using my flashlight on the phone. My dad flicked the light switch off and then on again, and of course, the light came on. There was nothing in the room except evidence that I had fallen into the Halloween decorations. I got a big speech about how I watch too many horror movies or read too many books. It's all in my head, and that I am too old to be doing this. Alas, I began sleeping in the basement again. I wake up every morning with a sickness in my throat, and I think it's spreading to my chest. My sister has made a miraculous recovery and is back in school. I'm really not sure what to do. I have no clue what this thing is or why it's causing me to feel like this. Any help you guys can provide would be great. Growing up, everything was quite normal. At least, normal for me. I'll get right to the point. Ever since I can remember, I've always been able to see things and hear things that others could not. Sometimes, even predict things that haven't even happened yet. I know I sound crazy, but it's true. I've gotten this gift from my mom. As you can imagine, being able to communicate with spirits can be a huge blessing, but you'd be a fool to think that it wasn't a curse as well. I am going to tell you a little story, a story about the night that changed my life forever. You'd think that me being able to constantly see spirits, that I wouldn't be scared of the encounters anymore. You'd be wrong. 99% of my encounters with spirits are positive. Most of the ones that I meet are lost and have yet to let go and cross over. Almost 5 years ago now, I had my first encounter with something that I can only describe as not human. It was fall of 2013. During this time, I was extremely depressed and suicidal. On top of that, I had severe anxiety that prevented me from even leaving the house most days. I slept most every day for hours. I could not bring myself to get out of the bed, so I'd spent most of my time on my phone, if I was awake to pass the time. One night, I was up late as usual. It was probably around 11:30 or 12. I got out of bed to get a glass of water, and then head back to bed. As soon as I stepped back into my room, I felt anxiety, but I could not figure out why. I looked around my room. Nothing there. Nothing. But I felt something that I haven't felt before. Imagine stepping into your room, knowing that something was just wrong, and not being able to see anything about it. I didn't really have any options. I wasn't going to sleep in the living room on the couch, because it was too uncomfortable to sleep on. Plus, I'd be able to hear the cats running around the house all night. I decided to try my best to brush it off and assume that the feeling would eventually go away. I turned the lights off and crawled into bed. The feeling didn't go away, and soon I started to feel the feeling of being watched. My stomach was in knots at this point. I decided to just roll the covers over my head and focus on my breathing to calm me down. Somehow, I fell asleep, obviously from exhaustion. About an hour later, I woke up. It was quiet. Very, very quiet. I was still under the covers. I was laying on my back, but my face was towards the wall. Instinctively, I was about to reach for my phone to check the time when I realized that I could not move at all. I was completely pinned to the bed. I felt my stomach tie in knots, my throat swell, and I could feel tears starting to form in my eyes. My shell was frozen, but on the inside, I was screaming, like my life depended on it. The room was filled with the feeling of something evil. Something was in my room. Something wanted to hurt me. I could feel myself crying. My face was completely soaked with tears. Suddenly, ever so slowly, I felt something settle down in my bed next to me. Menacing and evil, that's what it was, whatever it was. All it wanted to hurt me. Suddenly, I heard it speak. The guttural, menacing, demonic voice. It said, "I can hear your heart beating." I felt my heart drop to the bottom of my stomach. I am going to die. This thing is going to kill me. That was the only thing that I could think of. In that moment, the only thing that I could do was accept the fact that this thing was going to kill me. I was completely helpless. Suddenly, I felt his hand on top of my head. As soon as it touched me, I screamed. With all of the strength I had left in my body, hoping that somehow it would wake me up from my frozen body. A second later, I jolted up, breaking my invisible chains. I was finally able to speak and move my body. I was sitting up. The covers had slipped off of my face. To this day, I will forever have the image of this thing burnt into my memory. My eyes were glued to my door. Its face was narrow and black, along with the rest of its body. Horns like goats stuck out of the top of its disgusting head, but its eyes were blood red, piercing, horrifying. It was staring right at me, taunting me, making sure that I knew I was its prey. Instinctively, I covered my eyes and screamed bloody murder, hoping that my mom would hear. I could not stop crying. I was absolutely mortified. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a dream at all. Suddenly, I jumped. My phone started to play music on its own. All I could do was scream for my mom and pray for my life. A moment later, my mom burst into my room, looking horrified. I was shaking uncontrollably. I was crying so much that I could not properly explain what had happened. She tried her best to calm me down, but with no success. Finally, when I had calmed down, I explained to her that I had seen something demonic on my room. My mom being my mom, she just told me that I was overtired and stressed to the point where my brain was playing tricks on me. I felt alone, terrified. I didn't expect her to believe me, and unfortunately, she never will. But at least, she tried her best to comfort me. She took me to her room so I could sleep in her bed the rest of the night. I didn't sleep. I didn't even close my eyes. I was too afraid that it was going to come back. Thankfully, after a couple of hours, I had passed out and got at least 3 hours of sleep. The next morning, I stuck to my mom like a puppy dog. I was too terrified to be left alone. I felt like every corner turned, I would see it again. My mom suggested that we shut the room. Since that night, I haven't seen it again, and I don't think that I will ever see it again. But ever since that night, I was scared. To this day, I cannot and will not go to sleep with the lights off. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up, and if you like my videos and want to see more, subscribe to my channel. And if you really want to support this channel, support my Patreon page, and I will see you all in my next video.